Good morning, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Gamasutra Twitch channel. My name is Brian Francis, the invisible voice inside your head. I am, as always, here on this Friday morning to check out some interesting games with you and talk to the people who make them. Just giving a quick shout out to people in chat. Hey there, Duplo Duplex, Statchy Stat. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for joining us today as we check out Reigns, Her Majesty. This is the sequel to Reigns, which came out last year? This actually came out last year, right, Francois? The first one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It came 2016, so yeah, last year.
And oh wow, this is probably the shortest sequel turnaround that we've ever had for someone who's on the channel. But that being said, I'm being rude and not introducing our guest. Francois, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, so I'm Francois Alliot. I'm the creator of Rings. I have different roles, but I'm the developer. I was the writer of the first one and a bit of a designer too. So there you go.
Yeah. And Alex, first of the faces, second of the faces, last of the faces, all of the faces. Who are you and why are you here?
I'm Alex Warren, editor at Gamasutra.com. It's a little earlier here than we are used to, but we are very psyched to be joined today by you, Francois. Could you tell us a bit, if you will, about sort of the process of putting Her Majesty together so quickly after the release of Reigns?
Yeah, so we wanted to. We had a lot of people asking, I would like to play the Queen instead of the King. That was indeed the initial idea. And it was difficult to do in ranks because it would mean like double the amount of the game. So we decided to start something new, and that's how the project started. And
yeah. So I've only played about an hour, so what stands out to me the most about this second run is the story and the writing. It seems much more. Reigns was well written and interesting and kind of weird in a really fun and sort of unsettling way. Her Majesty has character. It has wit. It's weird. It's kind of witchy. It's fun, and I just enjoy the story much more than the writing. We should say up front that I believe it was worked on by a former colleague of ours, Leigh Alexander, and I just wanted to get your sense of sort of how you put that together in such a strange and seemingly really challenging and convoluted game design.
Yeah, so it's really like a process. For the first train, I was really like just trying a lot of things and just pushing a lot of ideas around very cliche sort of characters. So it was a bit like an experimentation, if you want. And the second one, with Lee, we decided to create something a bit stronger, with more structure, more characters that are more defined, with stronger backstories, and so use the tool we created with Ranks 1 to actually make a real story, if you want. Well, there is a real story in Ranks 1, but it's more like a joke. So that this time around we decided to make something a bit stronger. And after that, the process is like writing cards and sort of managing how we want the story to evolve. So it's not like it's not at all linear. So we have to sort of make the corpus of cards evolve throughout the whole project.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to see how that unravels as I play. For those who haven't played the game yet, you can see on the top, Bryant has 4 meters that are lights that turn green or red, and they sort of go up or down. And there's, I'm not sure exactly what they stand for, other than there's a military one, there's a people one, a wealth one, and a church one. And when those meters get too high or too low, the game is over for that particular region.
You die. The queen is dead.
Long
live the queen.
Yeah. And you pick up as a new queen where the old queen kind of left off. It seems hard to tell a story within those parameters because as a player, like I often find myself not quite knowing what's going to happen when I make a given choice. And often it seems almost at the whims of fate, I will be locked in a tower or chased screaming out of the kingdom. So how did you together as a team work to try and tell an interesting story within a gameplay system that can go so wrong so quickly?
Yeah. I think we work by having different goals. So the first goal for Ring is to make the initial loop work. So we need cards that you can randomly select, and it creates your dynasty, and you have to sort of understand how they have consequences on your data, and from that you get better at it, and you make longer and longer reigns. So that's the first objective is always to work on the sort of high score chase side of the game. So always have like one cards, what I call one cards, which are cards that are not related to a specific story, but more like random events in the kingdom, if you want, and then like have a good amount of them to make things flow nicely. And after that, we introduce storylines like this one, the one you're playing now, which is like some sort of tutorial story that happens the second reigns or the third reigns that you play in the game, that will happen every time, that teaches you how to use items. So that's the sort of thing that we design to happen in the game at a certain point. So there you go.
Right on. I want to come back to that in a minute, but there's some folks in chat who are throwing out some good questions. I want to give them a shout out. Oh boy, Stashy Stat. Sorry, it's really early in the morning for me. This fine person wants to know, was it easier doing the project planning this time around, given that it's a straight sequel?
Yes, it was a lot easier, because I was not exploring the concept. So I knew I had the code, so I had like a good base to build the game on, and after that. What was very difficult, well, not very difficult, but the most difficult part was to sort of give my tools to Lee, because she discovered like how I was working, which is a bit messy, because I'm both a coder and the writer of the first one, so I sort of design everything together. So that was difficult to enter that sort of system, because it's relatively complicated. But once she got that, and we trained on writing cards, then it was a lot easier. So we spent a lot of time like talking to each other, so make sure she gets how the mechanic works, and the sort of cards that works and the cards that won't work, and after that we built on that. So.
Yeah, right on. I mean, that's a fascinating topic to dig into. First of all, like just in moving from one project to the next so quickly, what were you able to learn about the process of putting together a game like this that maybe other developers could also learn from?
Well, something I learned relatively early. So it was not the game I learned but that was definitely something that's for me very important, and for other indie developers, but I think that's essential. So I know how to finish projects. So when I start something, I have a good idea of what I want to do and how I want to do it, and so it gives me some sort of deadline. So that's very, very important when you do, especially indie games. I think it's like something, if you don't have like a very sense of what you're trying to achieve means in terms of time, of effort, of production, and of bringing all this together. It's going to be difficult to finish. So that's the most important skill I got as an indie developer. I think it's the ability to organize my project and know when it's going to be finished.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to quickly jump in before I move on with the gameplay to ask a question about what I'm looking at right now. I noticed this on my phone, and I actually thought my phone was breaking for a moment. But you're actually doing a really cool flicker animation here, which, as you encounter this celestial character, the All-Mother, I wanted to ask about how in this game you designed certain interactions to be sort of like diegetic to the device, because this whole thing started with swiping left or right like you're looking at prospective romantic partners on Tinder, and this game seems to have evolved and seems to actively like be interested in just seems interested in the physicality of the device that you're playing on. And I understand these games are sort of meant for mobile, even though we're playing it on Steam right now. Could you talk about that decision a bit and how stuff like this came to be? Because it really helps set the mood.
Yeah. I think it sort of all came from the initial idea which was that I really think like that Tinder is a toy. Okay, so it's not so much. Well, it's a dating app, but before that, it's a toy. It's like it's nice to actually. There's a very good flow in it. There's a very good structure to the flow, and that's what I built the game upon, and everything in the game sort of help the player define the pace it goes in the game. You can swipe very, very quickly, or you can take your time, and we sort of adapt everything around that, like the sound, the music, and stuff like that. They all come to support the pace you define for your reign, basically. And after that, I think we did also things like on the iOS version of the game, you got vibration, yeah, I really like the way you can transmit a bit when you got like the glitch you just show before. When you got that glitch, the phone sort of tries to break and re-break very weirdly. So that's I like that. It's like it's inhibited. You got just like a ghost in the machine. John.
Oh man, what do you think it is that animates Tinder? What is the ghost in the machine that makes that app so endlessly entrancing to you? And what is it that you think makes it a good vehicle for games?
Yeah, I think it's the sort of it's what do you say? It's the way that it's infinite. Actually, it's like it's this sort of very strange idea that you can infinitely swipe between people you might be interested in. You know, it's like the infinite supply of people you could date theoretically, and that's very fascinating when you think about it. It's like a very loop, and that has some sort of also some sort of I don't know. It's also very very dark in some way. You're a bit trapped, you know, in this loop, this infinite way of swiping, and that's why we had the devil in the first reign. It's like to sort of translate this idea that you're trapped in this swiping gesture in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious, Brian, to get your thoughts on this. It feels to me very like satisfying and disposable at the same time, right? Like you can just keep going. It's a very small flick of the finger. There's like infinite possibilities waiting for you after this card. And the game itself, and both games are designed to sort of like, you know, the consequences, even at their worst, aren't that bad. You just start again. But you know, so much of what I find appealing about this game comes down to the feeling of playing it on a phone and tapping with my finger and sliding. Brian, is there a similar carryover for you using a mouse on? Because I assume you're playing this on a PC.
Oh God.
Yeah. Is that good or?
No, that was bad. I died in childbirth.
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming. I haven't encountered that one yet. I'm playing the PC version now, and I played the mobile one. I missed the swiping. I admit, like I prefer playing this game on mobile. Which makes me for Francois, that makes me ask, even though you were borrowing from a mobile game and mobile mechanic, for what reason did you pursue a Steam release, especially given that it is a very hectic time to release on Steam for indie developers right now?
Yeah. So we did that for a couple of reasons. First, the game is actually very nice with the controller, so more than the mouse, which is can be a bit annoying. But with the controller, it's very nice. And the second thing is we discovered very early when we started play test the game that people like to gaffer around the game. And you can't really do that around the phone, and they take decisions together. So that's interesting because there's some sort of multiplayer side to Reigns because it's so simple and binary. You can have an audience behind you and take decisions with you. You say, "Oh, should I go left or right?" And this way you can actually play with other people. And there's even there was an experiment in Barcelona last year, and they did the game in a classroom with 100 people who took decisions together by voting. So that's funny. And
I noticed that coming around this time, there's a lot more. I remember very fondly the structured interactions in the first Reigns, and especially how it all anchored around trying to get that dang dog and the devil to actually not kill you at the end. But I noticed in this game there's a lot more moments like the one we're seeing now that are they're kind of a puzzle that you're stumbling upon in the moment, and even if you fail, you get the opportunity to try again with a later queen. Can you talk about deciding to make more of these structured interactions and how after not doing them in the first one, you made so many for this one?
Yeah. Because for the first one, it could happen that you will sort of lose track of stories and stuff like that. So in this second one, we wanted to make it a bit easier for the player to actually make sense of the story. A lot of people a lot of players of the first rank didn't actually just totally ignore the story, and it's fine, but just it's a bit too bad. So this time around, that's why you got the inventory too. So it helps to create shortcuts in the narrative. You can, if you will learn to use the items and the characters, and that will help you create shortcuts in the narrative to access part of the story that you need to redo because you messed up the first time, and so on and so forth. So we worked a bit through notably the inventory on that idea. Yeah, so go see the explore.
Yeah, man, this whole game is it's enshrouded in an air of mystery, right? There are strange signs and sigils. There are weird voices. There are strange effects.
There's a cat.
There's a cat. I haven't figured out the cat yet. It's got a real good vibe, I think, and a strong theme. Stat in chat wants to know, the setting appears medieval inspired, but are there any particular countries or regions or stories that you drew particular inspiration from?
Yeah, so definitely for this one, it's more like Renaissance, and especially French Renaissance was a bit more like the background, I would say, and then the classic era too. Yeah. So a bit more like sort of modern in some way, but not that much.
I feel like there's a stronger. I mean, I never finished the original Reign, so maybe I didn't see it. I feel like there's a stronger, a mystical bent to it. There's more witchcraft. There's more strange mystical things happening. I don't know if that's on point or not. Something that also strikes me about the item system is that you can use it. I don't know if you meant this on purpose, but if you use an item on somebody when they aren't expecting it, it seems like all your meters go down because they're like, you're crazy. Yeah. You can't do that. And I found that to be really handy when I had a meter getting too high to just randomly act crazy and throw something at somebody, so the whole court would lose respect, and then I wouldn't get
that's a
trampled.
good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good tip. It's a good one. Yeah, no, it was definitely an idea. Because we use it as a way to sort of make the system a bit more forgiving.
Yeah, I wanted to know if that was. I assumed that was by intent, but I wanted to know if that particular use came through. If that was envisioned from the very start, or if it was just a happy accident, and if so, were there any other interesting happy accidents that came about during production on this game?
Yes, a couple. Well, I don't want to spoil too much. I don't know if we're gonna manage to go there, but
sure.
You got some a lot of things happening around the zodiac sign in the game. So when you die, you will go to the queens, the dynasty of queens, which is this loop, and by doing that, you will see that each queen is associated with a different zodiac sign. So. And that has very strong impact on the game, and all this we built as we went along. So that was most. I like to think of the development as more like the exploration of concepts. So I have no idea, and neither Lee nor me had any idea at the start of how we wanted the game to finish. It happened actually very late in the development. And it's more like, okay, we decide we write 50 cards to make the game start and get the feel and how we want the characters to develop and stuff like that. And after that, you come back with 100 cards, 200 cards, and so on and so forth. So, and we tweak the game not necessarily by deleting things but by rebalancing, adding more stuff that affects the church, for example, or that develop that particular story because we like it or we want more. And that's how we make the game. It's more like a process than an actual plan that is defined from the start.
Yeah, fair.
I wanted to just jump in and say Justice Druvius's judgments that come down. You keep making decisions based on how they affect the meters. And then you have these little like letters from Justice Druvius establishing the legal precedent you set are like a very twisted mechanic because they show how making decisions on one hand can have horrible implications on the other. And I just wanted to call that out and compliment that as a great succession of what caught my attention about the first game.
Yeah. For all this, you have to compliment Lee more than me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Lee's great. Everyone should go buy and read and listen to and watch everything she does. Yeah. So I wanted to circle back because you mentioned earlier that one of your great strengths you see as a developer, especially a new developer, is your ability to ship games. And I agree that shipping games is really, really hard, and a lot of devs have trouble doing it. You say you set deadlines. I want to know how you do that, given that game production can so often seem compact and forecastable at the outset, and just a gnarled mess midway through. When so many pieces can expand and contract and just become totally different than what you expected them to be. How do you set and stick to deadlines?
So for me, that's I just as I explained for the writing of Reigns, I just integrate the uncertainty in the development. So like instead of as I said, I'm a bit lazy. I don't like to destroy things I did. So for example, for Reigns, the main thing is to establish like a prototype, something that works with a very small subsets of cards, for instance, and then I gave myself 9 months of production to finish the game, and basically it's just about keeping very, very straight the process of making the game, like making sure I always do very, very tight loop of iteration. So I design things, I test them, and I develop a code that needs to structure everything, and I go on like this, and by doing 50 cards by 50 cards basically, and just doing this all the time, and that's how I get to the end at some point, because I know that right from the start, okay, I got 50 cards. I think I need 800 to have something that will be sufficiently open to make the loop work for 2 hours. Okay, that's my aim. The players will enjoy the game for 2 hours, and that's very good for me. So after that. It's all about the process, keeping the process, the iteration very tight around the development, not knowing where the game will go in the end. It's not the point. It's just being able to just make the process very, very tight. And if especially for a game like Reigns, we had the tone, we had the characters from the start, we had the mechanic. So we knew in what way we wanted to expand it. So it's a bit like a process of writing something. You have an idea, you have a tone, you have something, and then it's about exploring that idea and bring it to its end. So I don't know if it makes sense, but yeah.
No, I mean, it sounds good. It makes me ask, given that level of organization and of planning and focus, do you find yourself crunching very often on projects like this? And given the size of your team and the kind of games you make, like, does crunch have meaning for you, or is it just like you just work until it's done?
Yeah, I don't do a lot of crunching time, or maybe it's just I consider crunch the things that I don't really like to do, and it's just annoying, like making screenshot at the end, because you need screenshot even I don't know what hundreds of shops the game will be sold, so I have to do hundreds of not just me, the artist too, so I try to do it too, so that's the annoying part. So that's but it's not real crunch, because it's not like I don't know. No, I tend to think same thing. It's more like about the process of doing the game than defining a plan right from the start that would make me go through hell because I'm not finished on certain things. It's more like it's more. I prefer to work on the distance rather than plan very, very nicely. Sort of mess up for 3 months and then have 2 months of crunch at the end. So no, it's not working.
Yeah, no, fair. It's funny that you lump everything you don't like to do under the heading of crunch. That's that's really good. No matter how you work, crunch is always the worst stuff.
Yeah.
So. Let's talk about that really annoying part at the end, right? That part of figuring out where you're going to sell it and how you're going to sell it, who you're going to market it to. How do you do that, given that you seem to not be a big fan of it? I know you have a publisher, which I'm sure helps. But given the small size of your team and sort of the unique vibe of a game like Reigns, how do you effectively get it in front of the people that will like it the most?
So yeah, indeed, on this, the publisher is very important, especially for me, because at this, especially because for Reigns, I was not. I needed really Devolver to get to the traction around the game, and I think that it would not have happened without them. And they do a lot of things that I don't really like to do, like marketing, PR. It's not my job really, and I'm not very good at it. So it's really things that I think, and especially for an indie developer, we tend to forget that some people are a lot better than ourselves at making a lot of stuff, and you got this sort of image of an indie developer that's supposed to do everything, and I don't want to do everything. I'm not. It's not my job. So I really like that for that. For regarding the communication and the marketing and the stuff like that. What was very important was to have a publisher that was both that managed something like Downwell, okay? Because Downwell was a mobile game that worked very well on PC and Steam at the same time. So Devolver managed this thing that was a bit never seen before of creating a successful game both on mobile and on PC as a premium game, and that's the model I wanted for Reigns, because I knew it worked very well for PC too, and also because we needed to reach towards like YouTubers, streamers, and they don't play mobile game that much, and because I understand it very well. I mean, you see the format. It's not perfect for a YouTuber. It's not the right format. It's a lot easier to plug your thing on Steam and do the stream on Steam, and it makes a lot of sense. It's not practical to just play on your phone. So that was very important, and Devolver helped a lot to reach to that audience too.
Right on.
Which helped to sell mobile games too. So,
yeah, were you? I mean, I know everyone who makes anything is nervous putting it out into the world, but you've made games before, you've launched games before, you've done well before. I wanted to know, has your expectations of the game market changed in the last year or so? We talked to a lot of developers who either champion or decry the notion of like an indie apocalypse. The idea that there are so many games coming out every week that it's incredibly hard for anyone to get noticed. From your perspective, like, what do you think? Were you concerned at all, or did you think Reigns has a unique vibe that would cut through that?
I think it's very true. Well, it's very true. The market is super difficult, but at the same time, it doesn't mean you don't have less space for a good game. I think might be difficult to find them, but yeah. And for Reigns, we are building up on the IP of the first ones. Like we're making like a series of games, and it works very well because we're telling stories. So it's not like I don't know, Freeze from Asher, where it's difficult to make a sequel because it wouldn't work. So we're building the game on the setting, on the cards, on the tone, on the characters. So we can sort of take that and put it in different environment or idea, and that's what we wanted to do, like bring more Reigns in a different setting with different characters. And I don't think it can fail miserably. It doesn't seem to it's just people want more Reigns, so I'm here to provide.
All right, yeah, I mean, that's strong. It's a strong position to take. I hope it pans out. It seems to be the case.
Earlier in this conversation, you mentioned that part of the reason to do Reigns Her Majesty was that in order to add a queen to Reigns, it would have doubled the size of the game. What was it like to go from patching the first game and essentially distributing cards to everyone's decks to building a whole new deck? With new design ideas. Can you talk about making that transition?
So from what's the question? Sorry.
Earlier you just sort of finished talking about how people want more Reigns, which is good. And earlier you were giving them more Reigns by updating the first game, and then when you realized you wanted to do that sequel. Can you sort of talk about how you went from answering, like, I'm just thinking about what you said about people wanting more Reigns, and at first you had one way to solve that, and then you realized you needed to go down the sequel path.
Yes, you're right.
And if you could talk about that change in your life.
Yeah. I think it was related to the general idea that I think Reigns 1 is finished somewhere. Like, I got this setting of cards, I got the story. It's not perfect. There's a lot of things that are wrong with it, but it still works, and it's a whole thing. So, okay. If I wanted, I don't really want to dwell on things too long. So, for me, that's one thing. People really like it is, and if I, for example, if I start to think about implementing inventory in Reigns, that's too complicated. It's too much, too many levels of consequences on the core game. So I had to sort of take stop and make a new one to actually bring new ideas in the system. I can't just make more of the same. It's not mean to. I don't really like that. It's like that's why it's a premium game. It's not like I can't just. Yeah, that's why I'm not very good at making like free-to-play games, because free-to-play games, it's all about creating creating a hobby in some way. You want to create a hobby for people. Like they start playing your game, they enter your game, and then 3 months after, if they're still there, well, you won. Okay. I don't really want that. I'm very happy if players like enjoy the game for 2 hours and they paid for it, and that's fine. And I don't really want. Maybe it's just personally, I don't really want to commit to to create content for 10 years on a single game. So I don't know. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. It is like perversely brave to be releasing like a mobile game with a fixed upfront cost. It seems very strange these days. Even though somehow in the last month or so, I've bought like probably 4 or 5 mobile games that were, $4 a piece or whatever. But it just is very irregular. Normally the App Store seems dominated by free-to-play stuff. So yeah, let's dig into some of the questions here in chat. Actually, they aren't questions, but they've been having a really good conversation about like how to budget and how to forecast for game production. I think it's fascinating. I know you sort of talked at length about your philosophy and how you approach it, but I wonder how you budget, if you don't mind talking a little bit about the money. Like, I think it can be very tricky when you're an indie developer trying to manage expenses and trying to keep the lights on. So I kind of have a 2-part question for you. One is, how do you financially sustain your game development? Is it purely through sales, or do you do contract work or whatever? And then for this specific game, like, walk us through like the actual production planning process, because I'm so fascinated that you are so confident about your ability to ship games. It's rad, but it's rare in my experience. So please tell me more.
Yeah, so I think what makes the thing work, or is that I'm not a studio. I'm not an indie studio. Technically I'm an indie studio. Nariel is a studio, but it's not the reality. Nariel is just me, and then after that, for each game, I try to build up the team. So what we do is either to budget the game, I do either a mix between revenue share and pay upfront. Okay, so depending on the skill or the interest of the people or their means also, if they mean salary for 1 year, I have to budget that, but that's less revenue share if you want, and that's how we do it. It's like we define at the start for the contracts, are we gonna share the revenue with the people we identified to make the game with us, and after that, it's just sort of keep the balance. So it works because I really think revenue share is a good way to do this. So, of course, now with ranks, I don't really need to do contract on the side to pay for all that, and that's also why I'm published by developers, like they're funding the game. So I got a budget and they pay that. So if you want, it's not like I don't have to advance much. Just generally, it's a mix. I would say I try to pay upfront enough for the people to really to survive for the development.
Yeah.
And after that, they got a revenue share. And here you go. If you don't have a revenue share, you got a higher salary, but that's it.
That's an interesting relationship.
Yeah.
I guess it's easier when you know you've got one successful game that you can fund people with, as opposed to trying to work with just whatever money you have at the start of your first project.
Yeah, and I think also it's the idea of revenue share is a good one because that's I know the problem studios have. It's like if you want to hire someone and then you got a project and then you have no project, so what do you do with the people? You can't really just throw them. And the good thing about revenue share is that that sort of keep like a sustainable income for people through beyond a single project, because a game like even a game like Reigns, we're gonna sell it for like 10 years and it will still trickle and make a bit of money for everyone. So that's I think that's a good alternative in the pure indie world to do that sort of thing, rather than trying to create a studio. I don't really want to create a studio. I prefer to keep that sort of dynamic between very, very small group of people who are very responsible about their work and who are rewarded with a revenue share.
Yeah, if there were other devs out there who work alone or in small groups and they want to try something similar, is there somewhere you would point them or some advice you would give them? You say set up a revenue share, and I'm sure you can Google that, but maybe you could offer some more helpful resources or advice on how to do that fairly and equitably.
Yeah, I'll do. I would say if you intend to sign with a publisher, look very, very closely at your publisher and what you intend to do with them. Okay, it's not just and try to ask for money, because nothing is free.
Yeah.
If your publisher has your game for free, then there's no reason for them to push it, really, because it's free. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that's important. Also, I think you need to define to do that sort of revenue share. You need to define the tipping point of where your game becomes profitable. Okay, and see, that's depending on that tipping point that you will define the share of everyone and the money you can actually put forward, and that will give you the balance between upfront cost and revenue share. Like 1% of revenue share will correspond to I don't know, maybe $5,000, and then you have to you can use that to scale and discuss, negotiate with people on how they want to be paid, and that depends on the point you think everyone will be able to get revenue share.
Right on. Thank you. Brian, how you doing in there? It looks rough.
Good. I know it's actually going pretty well this round. I was just laughing. I was just laughing at the specific choice that popped up, whether it was her lover or her husband who buried her beneath silk, and I was like, wait, like on the one hand, like I'm trying to make a decision up here, but all of them were affected. And I'm like, who would bury someone in silk? And like it was just a moment where I found myself free of the game's numbers for a moment and just able to make a story decision.
Yeah.
Francois, this game is really funny. That's a compliment to you. That's a compliment to Lay, because the first Reigns was really funny, and like this bitter, dark humor is what made me want to keep playing it. And I gotta ask, why do you think funny games are valuable to the community? Because we don't see them a lot. Like either they're the truly funny, like the ones that stand out, are few and far between, and the ones that just try to be funny or make ironic jokes sort of just come and go like the wind. Do you have any take on games comedy?
Yeah, I think it's all related to some basic things, which is really related to the tone of the game, which well, I call that the gap, but it's taking from someone else. It's the idea that everything comical is coming from a gap between two ideas. Okay. And for Reigns, that gap is fundamentally on the mechanics level. It's like the fact that you're swiping, so very casual way of taking decisions, like in Tinder, and you confront that to the idea that you take decision as a ruler, as a king or the queen of a kingdom. So your swiping is generally to send people to their death or to go yourself to your own death. So that gap is actually funny. It's like it's comical by nature, if you want. And after that, the writing is about how to fill, to sort of try to use that gap to create situations where the players are taking their very casual decision and then they die very quickly, and so that's part of the I would say the way you bring comedy, especially in games. It needs to be related to game mechanics themselves, not just the ironic jokes. Or it's not a great place to make a joke in a game. So you need to plug it to actual things that happening that the player is in charge of. And after that, it's a lot of things related to the rhythm and the way you write very short sentences that sort of impact the player, and he will go or she will go from one card to another very in a way that creates funny situations just by the purely random way the cards are connecting. And yeah, that's it. That's how I explain it. After that, it's just trying to also when you got this mechanic of this thing that seems to work and it's funny, it's also about teaching to yourself how to write and how to do things. So at the start, when I started to make Reigns card, I was not funny at all. I mean, I had a few funny situations, but it was about how you train yourself to write these sort of things, and after that, after 100 cards, 200 cards, you start to find ideas and situations that work with the mechanic and which are funny, and that's what you work on. And it was the same for Lee too. She had to sort of learn how to integrate that language, if you want.
Nice. There's a good question in chat I want to get to real quick. They want to know, you have money from the previous Reigns game when funding this one, but how do you think about the different funding sources available to you as a game developer? Kickstarter, working with publishers, government funding, that kind of thing. What is your just general feeling about what is the best way to fund game development?
Well, I did all of them. So I did the self-funding, I did the publisher funding, I didn't do public grants, no.
How about government? Did you ever take any arts investment or arts funding or anything?
No, I didn't. I think governments I mean, government's public funds are useful, but you have to be careful about what it entails. Like sometimes there's a lot of strings attached. Like you need to report a lot. You need to. So I don't know. That's what I know in France. But yeah. So that's something. After that, publisher. You need to be. Very, very careful. So I had before Devolver, I signed my previous game with a publisher, and they never paid me anything. It's like they went burst, and so,
good.
So that's the sort of thing you need to look very, very carefully when you tend to sign, because you can really be in very, very bad position, because if a publisher has issues, well, you will be the one who pays in the end. So that's one thing. And after that, I don't think there's any real bad way to do it. Like before Reigns, I was doing contract on the side, and it worked. Can be annoying because it sort of dilutes a bit your work, but at the same time, if you can do it, that's probably a good solution. Yeah, there's no real like perfect solution. Whatever it takes to make a game.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the bottom line, right? We should probably wrap this up. We got about 10 minutes left, so I'd encourage anybody who's watching to submit your questions about game dev or Reigns in particular. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry,
I'm just laughing. I don't know why this one's got me laughing really hard.
Yeah?
This throne room sculpture is not to respectable tastes. Why does this young lady feign so lusciously? Religious ecstasy. I'm into it. I don't know why.
Yeah. That one, that's the left answer, that's me, and the right one is Lee. Something like that.
Yeah, man, religion can be ravishing. Yeah, so something we should ask, like, this is a game about powerful women, right? And there's nothing weird or strange about that, but sometimes, especially these days, people on the internet or people in power can make it seem like that's strange or out of place. So I want to ask, like, in putting together this game and marketing this game, like, have you encountered any difficulties or any unforeseen troubles in trying to get this game in front of people at a time when it seems like the idea of powerful women is especially fraught?
Yeah. Well, so far, no, not really. But that was some sort of concern, but I don't know. I knew that I couldn't write like the Queen game because I'm a man, and I think I would have missed like 80% of the things that Lee wrote in the game. That makes sense, and they make sense for me as a player also. So that's not just because it's a woman. It's a woman who writes a game for women. So it's more like to get this idea of the Queen and the whole idea of the position you have in the kingdom. I couldn't have done that. So that made sense to work with Lee, who is also before everything an excellent writer, and that's what we wanted to achieve too. So after that, no, there's no. So far, no. I don't know. Maybe I like to think that it's just a game. So people if people enjoy. I mean, if I got like hundreds of thousands of people who like the game, it's difficult to have like two sorry people who actually use that as a political way to annoy everyone. So no, I think it makes sense to accept that we won't be annoyed too much. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that. And for what it's worth, from the outside, we've seen nothing like that. I mean, all I've seen around this game is just praise for the writing and the story. But I had to check, because you never know these days how these kind of things can go over. Brian, how's it going in there?
Sorry, I'm... that one got me. The owl who seems to be a BuzzFeed quiz. is one of my favorite characters now. I didn't find him on the. It's weird. It's I'm startled by how many things I'm finding with a similar amount of playtime. Like I'm playing the Steam version. I literally just started it up for this stream, and there's things that I haven't found that in my mobile version that I found here, and there's things I'm finding in my mobile that I have found in my mobile version that I'm not finding here. Like I'm just surprised by how like different my run is going so far.
Yeah.
And laughing at the Harry Potter joke.
Let's get this last question in from Statue Stat.
Yeah, there's that good question down there from Statue Stat.
They just want to know, they hope this isn't too political, but were there any historical queens that the team read up on for inspiration?
Yeah, well, a bit of Marie Antoinette, definitely.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Because that was a bit the inspiration. After that, there's a lot of French queens, so that we probably don't know about, but actually it's like a dynasty of queen in France around I think it's the 17th century. That like built castles that managed the country for like 60 years because either the king was dead or poorly, or I don't know. There's this they had very different way to deal with notion of power, and you can see that in their castles, like the castle of Chambord in France, like I think that's the Queen Castle, and Ouchen also, maybe that's the one, I don't know, but one of these, and it's a very different way to represent the notion of power. Whereas, I won't give details, but that's interesting, and that's why we try to bring a different perspective in.
Right on.
All right. I guess it's time to go.
Yes.
Dang, I just want to
keep flipping.
I just want to keep flipping cards. I'm going to flip this one, just see if it breaks anything. Oh, that's interesting. Anyway, you have all been watching the Gamasutra Twitch channel. Thank you all for joining us today as we play Reigns Her Majesty with Francois Alliot. It's a really cool game. You can check it out on Steam, iOS, or Android. Apparently, the Steam version is good if you want to play it with other people, as we found out today. If you're here and you're new to us, we'd appreciate it if you clicked the follow button, because if you do, you'll get notifications when we go live with other great developers. We got some folks lined up for next week. Once January rolls around, we'll be talking to GDC speakers about their upcoming sessions and interviewing them about their work. So as always, we like to think of our channel as a great place to facilitate conversation between developers and the people who enjoy their games. So with that, Francois, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, if they have questions about making Reigns, where should they send them?
Oh, Twitter is the best way to know.
Twitter is the best way to do many things these days. It's also the worst way. Anyway, with that, thank you so much. And have a happy reign, everyone. Enjoy killing your peasants. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.